Hello everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to another episode of New Music Finds number 74. So this is where I like to collect together all the different music purchases that I've made over the past week and present it to you. And I get it from different places, local record stores, but also online retail like Amazon, eBay, and more. For this past week, I actually bought all 20 releases that we are going to talk about from my local record store, which is not a very common thing. Usually it's a combination of all those other places that I mentioned, but interesting that it just happened this way for this past week, and we'll get into that in just a bit here. But before we do, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please click the button. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by subscribing, you'll be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music, just like this with New Music Finds, episode number 74. So as I mentioned, all 20 releases, all 20 things that I bought came from my local record store, Sound Exchange in Wayne, New Jersey. This place, if you haven't already heard me talk about it, which I've been talking a lot about it, so you probably have, I'm really enjoying the store. So case in point by all the the things that I've got here. And so yeah, as always, we start with new releases, and normally I get them from Amazon, but Amazon has been delayed in its shipping the last couple of weeks, and I've had to go different places to pick things up. So first one up, that's exactly what I did when Amazon couldn't ship it to me on time. Went to my local record store, and lo and behold, they had it. And I love that I have found a record store that actually stocks new things when they come out like this. Alan Parsons. The new album itself is called From the New World, and it's got 11 tracks on it. Pretty good stuff on here. Alan Parsons, of course, from Alan Parsons Project, but having done this now, I think this is 6 or 7 solo album for him, so he's been doing this for a while. Took a long break in between there, doing a lot of albums in the 90s, but then dropped off, hadn't done any for a while. This is now the second one back for him. This one here I actually like better than the last album itself. This one here has, for me, a much more consistent listen all the way throughout it. I think there's more classic sounding elements to this one than what we had on the last one. The last one sounded like a collection of tracks as opposed to a cohesive album. This one here I feel like is a much more cohesive album. Maybe it's due more into who is playing on this one here, fitting together better than the previous album. Not sure, but I do like this one and would recommend this to anyone who likes the Alan Parsons Project and or just good melodic rock. All right, one that I wasn't sure I was going to be picking up, but I had been debating on it, and I like all the different bands that this guy comes from. Derek Sherinian and Vortex, brand new solo album from him. He's got a lot of them out. This one here is, like all his other stuff, has a lot of different musical styles on it. The first couple songs on here are what you would expect based on the bands that he has been a part of, like Black Country Communion, Sons of Apollo, Dream Theater, stuff like that. The first 2 tracks definitely fit into that vein. He's got people like Steve Stevens from Billy Idol's band and Zakk Wylde, of course, playing from Ozzy on here, and a bunch of other different artists. I think Joe Bonamassa is also on this. And so you get a lot of different variety on it. Sort of once I got past that sort of different feel about the music itself, that it wasn't all of that one style that I liked from the bands that he's part of, I then really kind of grew into this. And as an instrumental album, very good. Listen all the way throughout, the playing on it, and some of what he's doing on keyboards kind of really blew my mind, whereas it wasn't stuff that I would have expected. I was thinking it was more lead guitar, but it was actually the keyboard doing these parts. So very interesting to find that stuff out. Now, those were the new releases that I had picked up, and then I, while at Sound Exchange, found a whole bunch of stuff. This is actually over 2 different visits, but I just sort of grouped it all here together because I would go and I would see things and then come home and wish that I'd pick them up and go back for them, but then find more stuff. So I'm just going to run through it all now. All right, got a brand new, or not a brand new, it was new to me because it was sealed, Timothy B Schmidt album. I think this is from 2006, called Leap of Faith on here. Timothy B Schmidt coming from the Eagles and Poco. Another great album. I've been picking up one by one his different albums as I find them. I think I've picked up 4 recently. All 4 of them have come from Sound Exchange. Now, there was only 2 initially out there that I saw, and because when you buy things, they write it down. Then these guys go look in back stock and go, oh, hey, people are interested in this. Let's put more out. And so as I've returned, I've found other things, which is pretty cool. I like that a store that is able to do that, giving me more things when I return to find. And it's not just the same old, you know. Okay, I picked up a Wall of Voodoo release in one of the previous visits, and I decided to go back and get this Stan Ridgeway solo album, debut solo album, called The Big Heat. Came out in 1986. This is a music on CD reissue. Must have been one of their early ones because I think it is 2018 is the year on the back of this. Don't know how long music on CD has been going for, but they're fairly new reissue label putting out really great albums that have been out of print for a long time. This one here, outstanding. I don't know why I didn't have this one sooner. If you like Wall of Voodoo, you're going to like this. But stuff on there is really great, you know, classic 80s period style stuff. All right, a band that's got a brand new album coming out soon. It's been over a decade since they put out a new album, but I went back and picked up some classic Hoodoo Gurus, which this album here, Blow Your Cool, this is 1987 on this one. Didn't really grow up with these guys, found out about them after the fact. If you watched my What's That You're Listening To episode from Monday, I talked about some Hoodoo Gurus and their guitar player coming from a band called The Hitmen. And that was a band that I took a chance on and loved so much it made me search out other bands and projects, including the Hoodoo Gurus and Radio Birdman. So Hitmen made up from those 2 different groups there. But yeah, so definitely checking back in with these guys. Found out I really enjoyed this. So that was cool. Found an Ian Astbury side project that I wasn't aware of. This one here simply called BXI, which stands for Boris and Ian Astbury. 4-track EP out on the Southern Lord label. Very heavy experimental style stuff. It's a Japanese band that has Ian Astbury singing with them. And somebody asked me, you know, how does that work? You know, Eastern music with, you know, Western artist Ian Astbury kind of thing like that, but works fine. I mean, they play music the same way we do, so very heavy guitars and cool stuff on the heavier end of the Cult sound, but it works very well. Found a cool Ronnie James Dio compilation that I chose to pick up after the box set that came out last week from the reissue, I should say, of Holy Diver that has a great remix on it. Definitely recommend that. I love what they've done to the remixed version of it, cleaning it up. But this here starts with Elf, goes through guest spots that he did with Roger Glover and Friends, into Rainbow, Black Sabbath, into solo Dio, back into his reunion with Black Sabbath. It's got Heaven and Hell on here. So it covers more than any of his other comps that are out there. Nothing unreleased that I don't already have, just I was in the mood for a good comprehensive Dio collection, and that was it, so I picked it up. Found some other cool comps that for different reasons I like. Scorpions Still Loving You features 9 remix tracks, and some of them are significantly remixed on here, having a very different sound, making it fun to hear that. Scorpions Best of the Ballads Hot and Slow, focusing on their very early era with Ole John Roth and Michael Schenker in there. So those early albums before they really broke big in the 80s. Good stuff there, different era. So, you know, when I'm in the mood for the Ole John Roth stuff, I'll pull that out, as opposed to if I'm in the mood for 80s era Scorps, I might pull the other comp and so forth. Found this one from Deep Purple, didn't even know this existed out there, or thought I did in a different format. Deep Purple, the collection, when I talked about this early on in the New Music Now episode, as I had just gotten these, came home, talking about it, I thought this was one of these other releases that I had seen that focused on Joe Lynn Turner and the reunion era of the band itself with Battle Rages On. which those tracks are on here. But when I looked at this a little closer, I realized it also had stuff from Perpendicular on here, which is when Steve Morse came into the band. So covering 3 different lineups of the group over 4 albums. Great release here. You know, it's got, let's see, 4 live tracks on it, interspersed around 7 other studio recordings from those different albums. It's a great collection. Those live tracks also are from the reunion era with Blackmore. And this is on Sony BMG label, so it's not just some little offshoot label. There's a great history of the band on the inside of it. So it's a whole package. You know, good art, good package, good sound, good label, all the above. But that's one of my favorite eras of the band. That's when I got into them. So for it to have a nice little succinct package of that makes it fun for me to listen to. Found a Glenn Frey live album. All of his albums are out of print and very hard to come by. This one here, a 1993 live album. Got great sound to that. Honeymoon Suite album that I didn't have. This one called Racing After Midnight. This one here I believe is 88, might be 89. It's hard to see the year on the back of that. Don't recognize any of the songs off of that. That was later era stuff. Definitely knew the songs from the first 2 albums. Have those albums on Rock Candy Records reissue. Got some later era stuff. Just don't have the stuff in the middle. So as I come across it, picking it up. Found a Moody Blues compilation, Voices in the Sky. Got a couple different ones. This one here I picked up because of the way that it starts with Ride My Seesaw on here, putting their most famous song, Nights in White Satin, at the end, which I don't really need to hear again. So I'm glad that that's all the way down. It's kind of like the Deep Purple compilations when they put Smoke on the Water on the last track. I'm much happier with that than it kicking off with it because I've heard that song so many times. This one turned out to be a much more mellow compilation than I was expecting. And so definitely not what I was anticipating. It'll be something that'll pull out when I'm in a different mood. I've got other ones that have that much bigger, more melodic rock sort of feel to it that I'll be pulling out, you know, when I'm in the mood for those sort of things. Here was a big find that I was really glad to get, and I've been enjoying since I picked it up. Patti Smythe, Never Enough. Second, say it's the second album because when she was with Scandal, that was really a solo album that they just slapped a name on. It really wasn't a band effort by the end of it, kind of a thing. Then she did this album here. So what a kind of weird history behind all of that there, but very good stuff here. The writers on this are interesting. We got guys from the Hooters on here. We have a song from Tom Waits, but all this stuff done at the time. So it's not like old covers of things. These are songs written for her, for the album that she did. And then some of this, like the Downtown Train, later re-recorded and had it, Rod Stewart had a hit with it. But I don't know if she was the first one to do it, you know, after Tom Waits wrote it or whatnot, but 1985 and appearing on this album in 1987. So very close to the time frame of it being written, appearing on here. But a great album, definitely enjoying that. Here was another good find, Ellen Foley, Spirit of St. Louis. Had this one on vinyl, been looking for this one for a while. Thought I'd only find the Wounded Birds reissue version and actually found Epic Records edition of this here. So didn't even know that Epic Records had ever put out an official version. Thought it was only ever first time on CD through Wounded Birds. So that was like sort of a double good find for me. Found a David T. Chastain solo album here called Elegant Seduction. And third solo album I found out, wasn't sure what this was when picking it up. A 1991 instrumental album from him. Of course, he has his band Chastain and some other projects that he's done with vocalists and things of that nature. This one here, all instrumental in a sort of neoclassical style that he does, very similar to what Yngwie Malmsteen and stuff like that. And I was on an Emerson, Lake and Palmer kick, and one of the things that I went to the store for was for some Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and walked away with all this other stuff here. And I didn't find the actual album I was looking for, but one that I'd been interested in for a while because it never appears on compilations, Love Beach. And I have to say, this is a great album. I've really enjoyed it. So I picked it up just to give it a try here, and it's one of the reissues from 2017. So it's got the original album from 78 on here, but it's also got an alternate mix of the album, which I like a lot better, and that's the second half of the album. So two different mixes of the album on one disc there. And so really enjoyed that. And I, as I said, went back for the one album I don't own by them, Tarkus, and they didn't have it, but I found some other great stuff. And I should say one album I don't own by now, but Works I picked up, which I didn't own. And this one here I'd always kind of steered a little clear of. Well, I take this back. I had this in the past and it didn't gel with me and I got rid of it, but that's really before I had understood what Emerson, Lake, and Palmer were all about. Now that I know what they're all about and the covers that they do reinterpreting as these prog rock epic pieces and stuff like that, I can get into it a little bit more. And the same thing with this, which had these solo tracks that all the members play on, but focused individually, letting each member of the band write, and that's what this album is here. And I had initially not enjoyed the song Fanfare for the Common Man, so steered clear of this album here. I've since grown into that and wanted this. Found out I really enjoyed this based on the Carl Palmer tracks that are very different than everything else on here. And so something that was more drummer-centric based on the rhythm and the beat and everything made this album very interesting for me. But I was really into the whole Greg Lake aspect of things, having picked up a recent solo, well, I say recent pickup from me, but solo album of his, Maneuvers, which I think was 1981, 82, somewhere around there. And then also they had just released an Asia live album from 83 when he fronted the band briefly on a Japanese tour. So I've been kind of going back, getting into different things that Greg Lake has been a part of. Emerson, Lake, and Powell. Cozy Powell drumming instead of Carl Palmer. Definitely a much more 80s vibe to this than anything else that the band had done. Good stuff. But this one here was the real treat out of all the things that I bought that I decided to take a chance on. Jeff Downes and Greg Lake on an album that's called Ride the Tiger. It was a project that they had worked on in around 1990, 89, 90, and it never led to anything, although some of these tracks would later turn up on Asia albums and other projects. But here they'd gotten together to see what they could do. So if you ever were wondering what a studio version of Asia would have been like with Greg Lake fronting, this would be a good representation here since Jeff Downes is doing it, and it's definitely got that Asia vibe to it. And Jeff Downes has guested and done a lot of different things that have since been released over the years, but were never released at the time, and they've got different feels to them and don't really tie into that whole Asia sound. But this here does, so if you're looking for more Asia and you want something, it's kind of exciting, I would highly recommend this Greg Lake, Jeff Downes project called Ride the Tiger. Very, very happy with that. So there you go. 20 things that I picked up over this past week. A couple of you guys keep asking me how many things I buy every week. This is an odd period for me. I've just moved to New Jersey. I'm digging out new record stores, checking them out and so forth. And this one place in particular, Sound Exchange, I'm just finding the mother of all stuff in. So I'm buying way more than I normally do, but I don't normally buy this much stuff. Usually hovers in somewhere between the 5 to 10 range. So me doing these big scores that I've had that you might have seen over the last few weeks is not the typical thing. And we'll probably start getting back down slowly here. I keep thinking every time I hit Sound Exchange, that's going to be it. I can't possibly find anything else, but then I do. So we'll see. All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Maybe gave you some ideas to go out and search some other things. Do check back every Wednesday for brand new episodes of New Music Finds, where I gather everything up that I've purchased over the past week, not just the stuff that you're seeing on New Music Now that I unbox right when I get it. All right, but there you go. Have a good one, everyone, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.